Donald Trump wants to take down the BBC. Yes, the British broadcaster is feeling the wrath of the President of the United States after it was revealed that they edited a speech he gave about January 6th.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
The BBC have admitted their wrongdoings, but have so far only given an apology to Trump.
With the panorama edit. I've just got this in, this is just breaking news, Emma, which relates to this story. We're just hearing that the BBC has apologised to Donald Trump over the editing of a speech which appeared on Panorama in 2024, adding it was an error of judgment and the programme will not be broadcast again in this form on any BBC platforms. So that's the BBC apologising directly to the President of the United States over the editing of a speech that appeared on Panorama in 2024.
But it seems like Trump is not accepting their words, initially vowing to sue the network for $1 billion.
Are you going ahead and suing the BBC?
Well, I guess I have to. Why not? Because they defrauded the public, and they've admitted it, and they're top echelon.
Director General and the CEO.
This is
resigned.
Within one of our great allies. This is supposedly our great ally, BBC. The government has a chunk of that one, I guess. But that's a pretty sad event. They actually changed my January 6th speech, which was a beautiful speech, which was a very calming speech, and they made it sound radical. And they actually changed it. What they did was rather incredible. They're showing me the results later on, the results of what they did, how they butchered it up. But it was very dishonest, and the head man quit, and a lot of the other people quit.
But it seems $1 billion isn't enough for Trump, with the president doubling down just yesterday and revealing that he will in fact sue them for anywhere between $1 to $5 billion in a move that could bankrupt the network.
So the BBC has apologised and retracted the report, but they say they won't pay any compensation.
Well, we'll sue them. We'll sue them for anywhere between $1 billion and $5 billion, probably sometime next week.
So you're ready to take?
Well, I think I have to do it. I mean, they've even admitted that they cheated. Not that they couldn't have not done that. They cheated. They changed the words coming out of my mouth. That's worse than what CBS did with Kamala. They changed her answer, but at least they didn't show it, coming out of her mouth.
And whilst many would think that Brits would be rallying against Trump and supporting the national broadcaster, the truth is actually to the contrary. Brits have had enough of the BBC's biased reporting that has tainted the UK media for years, reveals former Prime Minister Liz Truss.
There are lots of people in Britain who are cheering President Trump on and who want him to sue the BBC because they're a huge problem. They've lied, they've cheated, they've fiddled with footage, both in the case of President Trump, but also covering up what's happening in Britain, whether it's mass migration, whether it's our economic problems. They are always biased towards the left, and the British taxpayer has had to pay for all of this fake news. So there is a lot of excitement amongst Conservatives in Britain at the moment that President Trump is actually taking the BBC on.
Media lawyer Jonathan Code agrees with Liz Truss, saying Trump has a strong case.
All boils down, as we talked to you the other day about, has he got a case?
Well, I think he does. And I seem to be in a minority. I should say I'm a specialist UK media lawyer, but I have worked on American defamation cases. And because this is so fascinating, I've done some research. Now, I think he does have a good case. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into. I've sent over a note to your team. But the BBC, in rejecting first of all, they say they won't pay damages. And the reason they say they won't pay damages is because they don't think that Donald Trump has a viable claim in the US. Now, they've set out the 5 reasons why they don't think there is a viable claim in the US. Now, I can summarize them a little bit like Shania Twain, who said, they don't impress me much. They don't impress me much. And the fact is that I think the BBC's going to be tested, because it does seem that Donald Trump is going to sue. So we'll find out who's right, Donald Trump's lawyers or the BBC lawyers.
Code went on to explain that this debacle is a disaster for UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
Well, I imagine that he's fairly desperate to stop this claim going ahead. I mean, I imagine he'll pick his words very carefully to try and avoid it, because my own view is that the potential disaster that confronts the BBC by this claim going forward is existential. He's going to have to offer more, I think, than the BBC has offered to date, because at the moment the BBC hasn't really pleaded guilty, and Donald Trump, I'm sure it's not an issue of the money. He doesn't need the money. What seems to me to be the problem is the BBC hasn't fessed up to what it's done. It's still talking only about a mistake. Now, I think if Donald Trump is left only with the BBC saying, well, we made a mistake and that there is no fundamental bias against you, it was just an error of judgment. I don't think because first of all, I don't think that's true. And I think if Keir Starmer can't go beyond that, I don't think he's going to persuade Donald Trump not to sue.
But not everyone is behind Trump, with host David Pollock pushing the mainstream media narrative that Trump's actions are deeply authoritarian.
What it is really about, and this is not the first time, is the incumbent president of the United States using legal action, using lawsuits, using lawyers to try to intimidate media organizations, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, CBS News, BBC, into doing what he wants them to do. And that is deeply authoritarian.
I mean, I can see how you see it that way. And it's a valid point to make. But at the same time, he's been successful with some of these lawsuits as well. I mean, George Stephanopoulos. Look, the media has a responsibility to deliver information in a trustworthy manner. And when the trust in media erodes and the media is serving a dual purpose and acting with an apparent agenda, what do we do to rein that in?
That is why we have regulators. That's why we have strict regulation in this country. And it's on those regulators, if there is a systemic problem, and I would challenge the idea that it is this systemic, but if there is, that's why we have regulators in place. You have the FCC, we have Ofcom, that's why they exist. What we shouldn't have, if you ask me, is the most powerful man in the world, currently in office, using lawfare to intimidate journalists and their bosses.
But this commentator clapped back with a logical response saying if the BBC hadn't attacked Trump, then there wouldn't be a problem. And it seems the BBC should be very nervous, with Trump's history of suing the media very strong.
Has been able to receive out of people who have defamed him. YouTube, 25 million. Meta, 25 million. X, 10 million. 16 million out of CBS. And 16 million out of ABC News and Disney. So he's not giving up on it. And I think he's doing a service to the country when he does this. I don't think it's just about him. He's saying the media, and he said this since the beginning with fake news, right? That's the
Sky News host James McPherson says this new lawsuit could change the media narrative towards Trump going forward.
He says that one of the reasons he wants to sue, and he's talking about up to $5 billion in damages, is he hardly needs the money, but he says he wants to stop this sort of thing being repeated. And I don't know, maybe it will work, because have a listen to this little clip from CNN recently.
And we do want to be clear, the president, Trump, did not receive or send any of the messages, which largely predated his time as president. He's not been accused of any criminal wrongdoing in connection with Epstein or Maxwell.
Mark, have you heard CNN be so careful? But they seem petrified of any potential lawsuits coming their way. So maybe you're right. Maybe Trump could change some of the media culture.
Yes, and it's not about becoming pro-Trump, James. You know, Donald Trump is a flawed human being. He's a flawed politician. He's far from perfect. And in fact, with that doctored clip of January the 6th, you know, there are arguments to be made about whether or not his remarks were inappropriate and whether or not he incited violence. They didn't need to stitch it up in a way that was so misleading. Allow the facts to present themselves. That's what you do on Sky News Australia, is you win arguments and you have debates based upon facts. And that's what's at stake here. It is the truth. And it's so unfortunate that BBC, which is supposed to be the arbiters of truth, have been found to be so dishonest. And you mentioned earlier the apology, the mealy-mouthed apology from the BBC, demonstrating, James, they are in denial about the extent of bias within their midst. And that particular apology letter, that's what my 16-year-old son would describe as sorry, not sorry.